Welcome to the Books Between Friends podcast.
3 lifelong friends,
one shared obsession.
Books.
From epic fantasy to page-turning thrillers.
We dive into the stories we love
And the ones we just can't stop talking about.
So take a seat,
Grab a drink,
and get cozy. Welcome back, book friends. Speaking of cozy, what's making you feel cozy these days? So for me, I just got back from the beach a couple days ago, actually. It was very cozy. And I was actually a little worried because we were with my family. And so it was my parents, all my siblings. We had 2 kids with us. So I thought it was going to be very chaotic and that we were not going to be able to have like that cozy feeling on the beach where like I wanted to lay out and read and just kind of relax. But I actually did end up having that. Like my sister had this really nice setup. She had like the beach tent. She had like a little shade on the beach. And like we just had like our beach chairs right under that. So it was super cozy. I got to read on my Kindle and I got to read beach read while I was there. So it was a very cozy week. And I took a couple of days off after we got back. So like I could kind of transition back into work the right way.
Nice.
That is always the right move, to take at least a day or two after you come back from your trip to like reset for work.
It was so necessary. And honestly, like that's why I've also had like such a good week too, because it's like I took those days that I needed. So Ethan, Stephanie, what's kept you cozy this week?
As I was getting my mouth full of wine. Well, I'll tell you. So, I mean, our listeners probably noticed that we missed an episode last week, and it's me. I'm the culprit. I was sick, so I'm very gracious to Steph and Jen for being so cool about everything with our schedule. But I can tell you that during that time, I felt like utter shit. So what's kept me cozy, though, is I've told y'all about it. I've told Nick about it, but I've started thinking about story ideas for a possible book that I would like to write. I'm not going to reveal anything here, but it's always been a secret ambition of mine to write a novel. I think Jen has probably known that since we were in high school. I've always wanted to write a book, specifically a fantasy one. And so I've started really putting some ideas to paper, and I've fleshed out a few more ideas as well to go along with this book. But yeah, I'm excited about it. It's kept me cozy. It's kept me excited, which I haven't felt about an idea in quite some time. So yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm ready to start, outlining and things like that. So
That's so awesome. I love hearing that you're
thing.
Yeah. I love that you're putting ideas down already. That's awesome.
yeah.
So, as you guys all know, I got a Kindle for the first time a couple weeks ago, and I have just been going crazy reading on my Kindle. I'm on the 3rd book.
Dang.
Yeah, I'm just flying through Kindle books, you guys, and I'm loving it. I am officially a Kindle girly. I have, of course, an endless TBR on my Kindle already.
Of course, yeah.
But, I'm working diligently at it. That's been so much fun, just exploring all the Kindle books that there are. And I'm a little bit overwhelmed, but also excited to get through all these books that I've been wanting to read for a while. And like either I just haven't bought them or haven't had a chance to. And now they're just like in the palm of my hand whenever I want. It's so cool.
No, I love it. And honestly, you're probably going to be better about having a Kindle than me because I feel like I still need the physical book and you are definitely okay with not having it.
Oh no. Yeah, I'm just flying through these books. And I think it's so true what they say that you read faster on a Kindle, because like, I don't know, I'm just like
Interesting.
running through these books. It's crazy.
Yeah, because I mean the pages are smaller, so you're reading like at a faster pace naturally, and so when you just gain that momentum, I think it just snowballs. But yeah, I actually never intended to buy a Kindle whatsoever. I was like, I was such a snob. Like I was one of those, like I am only going to have the physical copy.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
And
I used to be that way.
right. And then I had a business trip, right? It was the first time I had to travel for work because we really didn't travel as a teacher. So it was the first time I traveled for work, and I was like, I'm reading Iron Flame. At the moment I was reading Iron Flame, and I was like, I don't want to lug that huge book,
Yeah.
a huge
Like a
hardcover
brick.
with me
Yeah.
all the way, to Delaware. And so that's when I got my Kindle, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Nice. Yeah.
Love
I
it.
actually like I took a physical book with me to the beach and immediately regretted that because it got wet. And I
Oh,
was
Of
like, this
course.
is why you don't take books to the beach. You take your Kindle.
this is why we can't have nice things.
Yep. Yeah.
So even my
Totally.
sister-in-law, Christina, was like, you have a Kindle, like use it.
Duh.
Yeah. That's exactly what it's for.
I know.
Well,
But
also, like,
no,
I'm excited for traveling because, sometimes I'll be carrying like three books with me if we travel because I'm like, I'm about to finish this one, and then I'm not sure. I'm a mood reader, so I'm like not really sure right away what I'm gonna want to start reading after that.
exactly,
But
yeah.
now that's not a problem. I don't have to carry like three or four books with me traveling. I could just throw my Kindle in the bag.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Are you
S-
rereading ACOTAR on your Kindle?
So I've already re-listened to all of them in
That's
the
right,
past
yeah.
couple of weeks or
Yeah.
couple
Okay.
months.
Well, I was gonna say you just started Crescent City, right?
I did, yes.
And that's my next book that I need to start with the Sarah J. Maas like world. And I'm sure everybody out there is like talking about the news that Sarah J. Maas dropped. Like literally, y'all, the minute I saw it on Instagram, the minute it hit, I like immediately sent it to Ethan and Stephanie. I was like, "Yo,
Yeah.
look!" And, and Ethan was still sick, so I didn't want to bother him. But I was like, "Y'all, no, I have to
Yeah.
share this. Like, look what's going on." And it was,
No,
of
yeah, that was
course,
necessary.
exactly. Like, why would she do that to us? Like the whole journal thing. Do you think that was super intentional of like her not like writing it very clearly on there, like to like spark a whole freaking debate online?
Well,
I
what
don't
is the
know. I
debate?
guess
Okay, so everybody's debating. So the video that she posted was said first drafts done, and then she had a journal and she closed her journal, and on the journal it said Akatar 6. And then the debate right now is whether it says Akatar 6
what that
through
mark
8,
is.
or if it's
Yeah.
6 and an arrow, or if it's 6 and the letter D for draft. So people are just like trying to figure out what is it, like did she just draft the next 3 books of Akatar? Is there just going to be one more? Like everyone's freaking out on the internet. It's kind of hilarious actually.
Like I'm trying to pull up the picture that you sent us because it is kind of sketchy. Like you
Exactly.
can't really
You can't
tell,
see it. That's
but
why
it
I'm like,
is.
did she intentionally write that? Because I think it's an 8. I think it's 6 or 8. That's what I
I
think.
think it's an arrow. I That's what
See,
I
that's what
think it
everybody's
is an
saying.
arrow.
Oh my gosh. Is this like a
Yeah, no, as soon as you sent me that, I went down a Reddit rabbit hole about it, of course. And then, yeah, there's like people are saying it's 6 through 8. Others are thinking it's an arrow.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the other one?
6 with the letter D for draft.
D, yeah.
Yeah. But she said drafts plural. So that's why people are thinking 6 or 8.
Well, yeah. I mean, even if it were, because to me it also looks like an arrow. But even if it were an arrow, what does that arrow mean? Like 6
Yeah.
to me that would
Exactly.
be like 6 and beyond, right? Like
Right.
implying that there could
Yeah.
be another book. Maybe not. Maybe she doesn't even know how many books there are. It certainly took her sweet time for this announcement.
I know.
Dude.
And honestly, like the way Book Talk reacted, it was immediate, y'all. Like she hasn't posted
Yeah.
anything for a while. The last thing she posted was a picture of her going to the mountains to write, and then she put like hashtag Akatar, and that was like years ago,
That was
maybe
like
I
two
think.
years ago. I
Yeah,
remember you sent me a screenshot of that too, and I was like, oh my gosh, maybe we'll get an announcement soon.
yeah, and we got no
Cut to 2 years
announcements,
later.
and this is like her first like hint of an announcement coming. Anyways,
And then, of course, I started reading through, like, okay, how long does it take once you, like, after the first draft? And people are talking about, well, last time after she had her first draft, it took X amount of months before we got the next announcement. And I'm like,
yeah.
okay, we're staring down the barrel of like at least another 6 months to a year before any real news comes again.
Yeah, I would say that's probably true.
Yeah.
Simply because if this fandom has proven anything, it's that they will wait. They may not wait patiently, but
Yeah.
they
Right.
will wait.
Well,
And
it's
so,
taken them away from the 4th book that Rebecca Yarros like is not writing right now. So like at least people's attention is pivoting a little to Akatar away from
To something else. Yeah.
yeah, away from Onyx Storm. Okay, book friends, before we jump into our discussion, I'm going to pass it over to Steph for a quick spoiler warning.
All right, you guys. So, before we get started, quick spoiler warning. If you are listening to this episode, we assume that you have already read through chapter 14 of Beach Read by Emily Henry. So, you've been warned, there are going to be spoilers throughout this episode. And then, real quick before we start, we just want to shout out our Apple Podcast reviews. We are so excited that we have had some amazing reviews from some of our listeners. And it's just so fun to hear from you guys what you're loving about our podcast. And it just makes us feel really good because we're still new, we're still growing. And it's so cool to see that we actually have a community that's growing out there. So for today, we wanted to shout out Megan17. She gave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and she said, "Love listening to this podcast. Great bookish insight, and love the friendship too." So
Sweet.
thank you so much, Megan17. That is so sweet. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with this podcast, so it like warms our heart that, it's actually doing this for people out there. And if you are really enjoying our podcast, please help us out and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps us grow and helps other people who are interested in this content find us. So that's a quick, easy thing you could do to help us out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, guys, let's get into our discussion. So, when we left off our last section, Gus and January just had a huge fight over the types of genres that they write. Gus was, I don't want to say giving January a hard time, but kind of giving January a hard time unintentionally about writing romances, right? And so we are back to this discussion, and Gus clarifies to January, and he says like it's the happy endings that he doesn't like. And it says that it's not that he doesn't take romance seriously as a genre, it's just that he's having a hard time with happy endings. And so he doesn't really go into too much of why he thinks that. He just pretty much talks about like, you get good and bad moments, life is kind of disappointing, why would you want to fall in love, kind of thing. So he's talking down on the whole concept of love, and that's baffling to January because she is obviously a hopeless romantic and she cannot fathom and understand why Gus feels this way, right? And so they go back and forth, and Gus, he kind of questions January on like why she was drinking wine out of her bag at the book club, which I thought was hilarious. I was like, yeah, I mean, that's a sign that you're doing great,
I
right?
love how she was calling it purse wine.
Because
Oh
he
my
was
God.
saying, hey, you've changed. And she goes, what? I'm not a fairy princess anymore. And he goes, no, like you're drinking wine out of a purse. You're not the same.
This is an
She's
issue.
changed.
And so he was like, that's for a reason, right? Like, what's going on? And so she talks about how she's different now, and maybe now that she is not the fairy princess that he once believed in, maybe she can write the kind of novels that he writes. So Gus is adamant that January cannot write the type of books that he writes. It's not her style. And then January challenges him, says that writing happily ever afters is not as easy as he may think, and that he could never do that. And so he said, but I'd wager you're about as likely to churn out something dark and dreary as I am to go all When Harry Met Sally. And so he proposes they make a deal. And the deal is January has to write a literary fiction and Gus will have to write a happily ever after. And so after the discussion, like January asks, what do you get out of this? And he admits that he's also in like a writing rut right now and that he could take a break from the books that he's been writing. And then he says whoever sells, obviously, their first book will win, and that the loser will have to promote the winner's book, and they'll have to write an endorsement for the cover, recommend it in interviews, and choose it when guests judging for book clubs. Plus, of course, they'll get bragging rights. So January agrees to the deal, and they even throw in little crash courses where like January will take Gus on these little rom-com dates so that he can get a feel for romance. And Gus will take January on interviews that he does for research that he does for his kind of books. And so now they have a deal. And this last part makes me laugh because I actually had somebody who said this to me, which was hilarious. But after they make the deal, Gus adds in, he goes, just one more thing. promise not to fall in love with me. I laughed, y'all. Like, this was hilarious because
Did
I
you? Did you
yes, I
laugh?
did. I laughed because not only did that happen to me
So
once, which
cringy.
is so cliche and cringy. Yeah, like
Yeah.
typically I'm a sucker for like love, and I'm a sucker for like, little moments here and there and like things that guys say and I'm just like, "Oh my God, that's so cute." This is not one of those. This is not one of those lines that I
Yeah,
like
obviously.
because I think it's so dumb because it's always funny because the guy ends up falling first anyways.
It's always the guy.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
always the guy who falls first anyways, but he's always the first one to say, "Don't fall in love with me." Like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
They really went like because they were talking about it earlier too, like a walk to remember. I was like, oh no, they actually did it.
Yeah.
Like the man didn't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, they
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
So, this kind of gives you a little insight on Gus and January's perspectives on love. Like, did either one of those surprise you guys? Like, what did y'all think of this little moment? And then what did you guys think of the deal too?
Yeah, no. I mean, I think it was clear from like the jump that Gus was probably going to be a little bit more cynical than January, especially when it comes to love, because she's already mentioned in her inner dialogue throughout the book that in college she talked about him having a 30-day shelf life or something like that for his relationships. And she's mentioned whoever his flavor of the month was. It's, different things like that that made it seem like he wasn't really a relationship type guy, which would lead you to believe he's not really a love type guy either.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, it's not surprising. And then like obviously we already have January's background and how she's the hopeless romantic. She writes romances and she loves love. Um, so they're complete polar opposites. So I love to see that dynamic and how their banter talking about it is still really good. So I think it's a cute dynamic.
Yeah, it is definitely cute. I do enjoy their banter. I audibly rolled my eyes on the you have to probably start to fall in love with me. But yeah, no, I'm not really surprised at their positions or stances on love at this point. I like that the writing is kind of poking fun at rom-coms a bit, right? Like it's
Yeah.
poking fun very like subtly, but it's
Right.
there, at the formulaic nature of rom-coms. But again, that's why many people love them and flock to them because they know exactly what they're getting.
Right.
And so, yeah, I like that it's doing that. And it's also poking fun at literary fiction, right? Because it's always dark and gloomy. So I appreciate that it's equal opportunity here.
Yeah.
And, the deal I thought was really interesting because obviously they're both in a rut and you can get out of that rut by just disrupting your normal routine. And so
Yeah.
that's what they're doing here. And it sets a really fun tone for the rest of this section, I think.
Yeah.
So
And
I was excited about that for them because it's like to Ethan's point, if you challenge yourself to do something that you're not used to, like that can be really good for your skill level and that'll help you like level up your skills. But at the same time, it's also an opportunity for both of them to like get to learn from each other and get to know each other. Obviously, we're also setting it up for their romance story.
Right,
So
yeah.
we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, I was really excited whenever they talked about the deal. I mean, of course, like that's like picking up the book that that's kind of where it's going, right? But I'm excited to see like what kind of dates she takes him on and what she comes up with that she finds as romantic and what kind of setting does she choose to try to have him fall in love with the genre, right? So the next morning, January admits she's like really excited about the deal. Like for the first time, she gets to write a book that no one is expecting. And that excites her. And you can already see that she's starting to come out of that writing rut that we were talking about, right? And she's also really excited to see Gus kind of struggle on how to write a love story. She starts thinking about what kind of book she needs to write. And then she starts thinking, well, I've never had any experience with twisted, secretive families. And like, haven't you though?
I'm like, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
He thinks
haven't
that's
you?
the premise of this book.
Yeah. The whole reason you're in a spiral right now is because of this.
Sonia. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then she starts thinking about her mom, right? So
Yeah.
after the funeral, she tried to confront her mom about what happened with the confrontation with Sonia. And her mom's only response was, I can't talk about this. So not only can she not talk to her dad about this because he's gone, she can't talk to her mom about it because she can't confront the truth, right? And so as she's like thinking about this, words just start like flowing out of her. And she starts writing like the first time she met the love of her father's life was at his funeral. And so she starts using her own story, finally, to start writing a story herself. So I really did like that. And then it also kind of goes back to like, it talks about how she fell in love with romance and like how that started. And it all started when her mom was going to get her chemotherapy and, she would binge read every like romance novel. She started just like falling in love with the characters, the story, and she started falling in love with her parents' love story too. And so after that, like that's kind of what got her into that genre. And so now that she's finally writing again, she writes, she had no idea whether her father had actually loved that woman. She didn't know whether he'd love her mother either. The three things that she knew without a doubt that he loved were books, boats, and January. Her mom used to tell her that she could see her father in January's love stories, and January thought it made sense that since she learned to love stories from him, and so she just kept writing. So what do you guys think about her writing, like serving as pretty much therapy at this point? Because she hasn't talked to anybody about what happened with her dad. Like, she hasn't confronted Sonia. The last time she saw her, she ran away from her.
Yeah, totally. So I think she's starting to like do a lot of like introspection on what exactly emotionally happened to her when her mom was going through chemotherapy, and realizing that the romances were a means for her to escape from the real feelings that she was having so that she could hide them from her mom, for her mom, instead of feeling upset and worried and scared for her mom that she was going through this cancer diagnosis and getting chemotherapy. She had to bottle that up to not upset her mom anymore. And so, as we all know, because we've all been through this, anytime you bottle up feelings, they're always eventually going to come to the surface and
Oh,
bite you in the
yeah.
ass.
Oh, yeah.
She's in the middle of it right now, and that's the consequence of, growing up having to bottle up these big emotions, and not really addressing them. So now she's in this writing rut and in a little bit of a crisis mode because she feels like her whole life was a sham.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's kind of ironic because we've read often that because of her mother's cancer diagnosis when she was so young, her family just took on this idea of life's too short, basically, like don't take anything for granted. And yet, I think she kind of took writing itself, the practice of it, for granted because she never realized just how cathartic it could be or how much of a therapy outlet it could be. And now we're already seeing it. I don't know if she's actually had that realization that she's using current life circumstances as inspiration, as a new form of inspiration, but she is. We see that in her process, in her thought process.
Right.
And so I think it's going to take an actual moment of realization where someone maybe has to rub it in her face, like this is where, your new inspiration's coming from, right? Like use writing in this way. Like
Right.
you're getting really good ideas from using it this way. Lean into it, right? But I don't know, it may be a while because she can lean into it for a little bit and then it just starts reminding her of things that she doesn't want to be reminded about yet.
Right.
Right.
And it literally took for her to say, I'm not going to write a romance novel, to finally start pouring out the things that she needed to pour into,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
Her whole discussion with Gus about why he doesn't like romance, like questioning him on why he doesn't like romance, is exactly what she needed to take out of her life to be able to start writing again. And so I really do
Yeah.
like that, it's like she has a lot to say. There's a lot to get out, and I'm really excited to see where her story takes off. Like, I hope that we get to see pieces of her story throughout the story, because I'm interested to see like how she kind of channels that into that,
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
really want to see what kind of romance Gus writes too.
Yeah. That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Haunting Adeline is what he would.
Oh my God, shut
Oh
up.
God, no.
Cue the rom-com cuteness here, because I really love this next part, y'all. Like this one here had me like, okay. So by Friday night, they were both sitting at their tables. And so the tables that they're sitting at like kind of face each other through like a window through their respective homes, right? And so they were sitting there and they did a little mock toast to each other through the windows. And instead of trying to talk across windows, Gus picks up a notebook and he writes a little note to January. And then January starts laughing and she writes back, "This reminds me of that Taylor Swift video." And so I'm sure
Yeah.
there's a lot of Swifties out there, but it's the song "You Belong With Me," right? And I immediately had to start playing that song. I had to like look up the video because I love that
Yeah.
song and I love those little moments. Like I would love to do like something like that with somebody. I think it's cute. Like that's just me though. So they kind of just smile at each other and then they go back to writing. So Gus takes her to their first cult interview for the research. Gus has been working on cult interviews for his book that now he's taken a break on, but he decided to take January to these interviews instead to see if she gets inspiration for her next novel, right? And so the woman that they're going to interview is the sister of somebody that was in a suicide cult. And so January jokes about the interview. And so she says, "So the point of this lesson is basically everything sucks. Now get to work writing about it." And Gus replies, "No, smartass. The point of this lesson is about character and detail." And so January fires back and she goes, "You're never going to believe this crazy coincidence, but we have those in women's fiction too." So they're just going back and forth. I love their freaking banter. It's hilarious, y'all. Because I read the book, I read the chapters, and then I listened to it on audiobook. And like the way the narrator does it, she does such a good job, like catching their little like banter. It's so funny. So anyway, so he talks about how this research really helps him just like write out the scenarios. He likes catching the detail about the characters, the events. He wants to make sure that it's not too absurd to be real, but that it still works for his novels. And so January asks him, "Are you going to use any of this cult stuff for his rom-com?" And he admits that he's really not sure what he's going to write about just yet. So he's just trying to get ideas. And so then January asks him, what does he have so far? So far, he has like an original premise for his story, but January really doesn't have anything for hers. So they interview the woman. The twin sister was in the cult. Gus starts asking questions, and then January immediately starts feeling nervous. Like this is a lot. This is really heavy for her, and so she feels guilty. And so she tells the woman, "You don't have to tell us anything if you don't want. Maybe just tell us something that you really liked about your sister, or anything that was your favorite thing about her." And so they talk about that. And then on the way back, Gus asks January like if she wants to talk about it. And so when they stop for gas, January asks Gus like, "What kind of stuff are you dealing with? Like, why are you so into this kind of stuff?" Right. And so he says that if she tells him why she moved to the lake house, then he'll tell her one real thing about himself. And so she finally tells him that her dad died and he left her the lake house. And then he tells her, "I lied. I have actually read your books." And so, I mean, she hasn't read any of his books. Like, she's already admitted that.
Right.
But he's been following her story and he's read all her romance books. Like, what?
So I also thought it was really cute when they were passing the notes, but I thought it was funny that he was the one that started the note writing, and then she called him out like, "Oh, see, you're being cute right now and romantic."
Yeah. I could actually
She's just
hear,
so good with the banter.
yeah, I
She
could
re- yeah,
actually
they
hear
really
the
are.
song play
Yes.
as
Right.
they were doing it. I was like, okay, because and I'll talk about this later too, but they keep on talking about their montage moment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's multiple here, right? Like I think this is
Right.
one, right, where you just see
Yeah.
note
For
after
sure.
note after note after note, and I'm like, okay, and all the while it's being played to "You Belong With Me" by Taylor Swift. So I
Totally.
thought it was
Yeah.
cute, very bantery. But, yeah,
It's funny that you say that he's the one that started it, Stephanie, because anytime like
Yeah.
they fight, January starts that.
Yes, that's true.
And anytime like they get into these like little cute moments, like he starts it. Because look, he just literally admitted to her that he has read all her books. Like
Yeah.
that's a romantic moment. Like that's a sweet moment to admit, like, hey, I have been following your
Right.
work.
Exactly. And
What
she
if
has been following him, but like out of spite.
Yeah, out of spite, not because she wants to see his work. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. To like keep tabs on like where they're at in rankings and stuff.
Yeah.
yeah.
What did you guys think about the cult piece of this? Like, I thought when I started reading this, I was like, whoa, it's kind of intense to research for a book?
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting what he explained about including details of the characters to make them feel more real and believable. Because one thing that they try to ask the woman is, did you know? Did you try to get her out? And she had no idea until her sister unfortunately passed away from being part of this cult.
Yeah.
And she said that she was happy and she was actually doing better. And this whole time she was in a suicide cult, you know?
Yeah.
So that's a scary thought. And then you know, it would I thought to myself it would be interesting to read a story that explores a situation like that. And he mentioned his idea would be to have like maybe a woman who joined a cult and then a guy who joins to try to save her but ends up moving up in the ranks of the cult and becoming, you know, basically one of the bad guys. That's such an interesting story, and you can already see how, you know, the character development in that would be so interesting.
Can you imagine the mindset you need for that though?
Yeah, I
You
can
know,
see
like
how
that's
that would
heavy.
be deep, you know,
Yeah.
to like jump into a topic like that. But it got January's wheels turning to like think about, you know, not every story is a happy story, but there are plenty of stories that deserve to be told. Is, you know, something to that effect she said at one point.
Yeah.
And that's also what opened the floodgates for her, because she had already started her writing
Right.
before this, but she started to get more like concrete ideas of like where her story was going to go after this interview. And I think it helped her to see a different perspective and like start diving into this different kind of writing.
Yeah, I latched onto that part as well, like where he's kind of where it forces his character to divulge his writing process and how he strings ideas together. And it's obviously very different from Jan's process, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Jan. But
January.
yeah, but it's very different. And I like that we're calling that out, that, you know, even
Yeah.
though we've taken this challenge on, we still have to carry it out in our own way that we're maybe not comfortable with, but it makes the most sense for us, you know.
I did want to point out something I noticed during the interview with the woman is that so Gus kind of approached her with like kind of direct questions about like, so when did she join the cult? Like, did you notice? Blah, blah, blah. And just went right into it. And I noticed January started trying to almost take care of the woman's feelings and
Right.
told her, well, you don't have to answer that question if you don't want to. Like, we can move on. And like, she was answering the questions just fine. And I noticed that this is probably a side effect of how she grew up protecting her mom's feelings this way by allowing her not to address things,
Right.
by softening the blow of things.
It's a good
And
call. Yeah.
she was the one who was uncomfortable and was trying to tell the woman, like, if you're not comfortable, and it's like, January, shut up, she's talking. Let her
Yeah.
talk.
She's the queen of projection, right? Like she does that. And
Yes.
I've even noticed that even in the questions that she asks Gus, those are the questions that she really should be asking herself. You know,
Right.
like, why are you here? Like, why are you in this town?
Right.
Why are you in this riding rut that you're in, right?
Yeah.
She asks
Right.
them of him always. But even as I'm reading that, I'm like, wait, who just said that? Was that him to her or her to him? Because
Yeah.
it's what I picture him saying to her sometimes, you know?
Yeah. Good point, guys.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So you mentioned it, Stephanie, where like after this interview, she kind of started getting more ideas for her own book. And so that's exactly what happens. Like she wakes up like inspired. She feels like there are stories that were meant to be told, and she has this spark of excitement for that. And that helps her too. Like she kind of like frets over what she wants to plan for Gus next because she wants him to feel the same excitement. She even says it. She was like, I woke up excited. I want him to wake up excited too. I want him to understand why I fell in love with romance. I want to do that for him. And so she pours a lot of energy into trying to figure out where to take Gus for their little rom-com date. And so she ends up taking them to the carnival, which I thought was kind of cute.
Okay, the way they described it though, I'm thinking like, I don't want to be there.
No,
This
for
is gonna
sure.
be a flop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping for
It was
like
like
a
a
bigger carnival.
rinky-dink little
Yeah.
carnival.
Yeah, like one in one of those little dollar store parking lots, you know, like
Yeah.
that's exactly what
It
it's.
sounded sketchy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this carnival only had 7 rides, y'all. And it's funny because like he points out that number and she's like, look at you for counting that high. So just love the way they just like pick on each
Oh
other.
my
It's
Trying
so
to count
funny.
to
God.
10. Yeah, that was
Yeah. And so he was like, "What are we doing here?" And so she tells him to fall in love, of course. Like, what are you talking about? Like, duh.
Duh, it's
And
cute.
so it's funny because he points to the porta potties next and he goes, "There's my definition of romance right there, the porta potties." Because
Well,
there was
there
a
was that
guy.
couple making
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
next to it.
So there was two little scenarios happening. There was one guy who
Yeah.
literally was about to shit himself. And then there was a couple making out right next to this guy, right? And so he points out the guy who needs to use the restroom.
Ew.
She points out the couple who's like making out. And it's just funny
Oh my
like watching
God.
them describe what romance is to them. So anyways,
Yeah.
Don't be kissing there.
Yeah, like,
yeah, that's
ew.
disgusting,
That's-
honestly. Like
I'm
bleh.
sure there's so many other spots to go make out. Like,
Yeah,
why next
why
to
the
the porta
porta
potties, you
potties?
In a
Yeah.
parking lot. Come on.
Yeah.
Go find your car.
Get in a car. Yeah.
That's what cars are for, okay?
Right.
Sorry. Gus starts pointing out January's dating history because, they knew each other in college. And so he brings up her ex, the golden boy, and they talk a little bit about this guy, right? He sounds like too perfect to be true. And this guy is the guy that she thought she was going to marry. And, I think we talked about him a little bit in our first episode, right? And so after her dad died, like she couldn't write, she couldn't read, like she couldn't leave her bed, And so Jacques, the guy that she was with, was telling her she wasn't being herself anymore and that he didn't know how to be with that version of January. And they broke up. And so January thought, except she was being the same version of herself, she just stopped trying to glow for him or anyone else, right? And so she kind of remembers back like all the things that she felt like she needed to do to be this perfect person for him and to have this perfect relationship and this perfect love life. And so I was really glad that like we kind of got into that because has she actually really truly been in love? She thought she did, she thought she was in love, but is that really what love was for her? And I think that's what she said. He fits so perfectly into the love story that she imagined for herself that she mistook him for the love of her life. And so
Yeah.
that got brought into this little story. She was thinking about that while she was on her date with Gus. They were trying to figure out what ride to get on. And I really love this part whenever they start like pointing at different people in the carnival and they like start coming up with stories for everybody. And so I was like, look at your like literary brains working, y'all. Like I loved listening
Yeah.
to that. And honestly, our outline would have been way too long if I put every single story they come up with.
Yeah, they were just like firing off. It reminded me, like, did y'all ever play that game as kids where you would like come up with the story together and someone would like say a line and then the next person would have to add to it and add,
Or
and
like
then
an
like it
improv
would go
challenge.
like that. Yeah, it's kind of like improv.
Yeah.
I remember playing that actually as a kid, and so I was imagining or just like reminiscing playing that game while reading this part, and it was fun. And they're so creative with everything
They
too.
are, yeah.
You can tell that's how they're professionals. I was like, this is like two professionals just shooting the breeze at being
Yeah.
pros at their craft, right? Like
Right.
story that guy right now.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
just
And of
come up
course,
with
like
something.
January always added like a little romantic twist, and Gus added a little darkness to it. And then after they start doing that, he pretty much like, hey, use this to write your next story. This is all really great stuff. And so
Mhm.
they finally pick a ride, and then they start talking about Gus and his dating history in college. And so they go back to that one little time that they had in college. I don't remember if we talk about this in our first episode, but they have a moment at some frat party where they're like grinding on each other. And so she questions him because she remembers him having a girlfriend at the time. And so he was like, nope, broke up with her before that. And then she goes, well, why did you break up with her? And he goes, why do you think January? And I'm like, wait, did he really
Mhm.
break up with her for January?
Oh.
Like, what? Like, no, they barely knew each other. But of course, nothing gets elaborated. January doesn't say anything, and we just leave it all up there, right? So then January, out of nowhere, says, oh, my parents met at a carnival. So I'm wondering, like, if that's why she chose this as their first date, right? Is because her
Mhm.
parents met at a carnival. So apparently they were in line, which is really funny. I have another funny story to this, y'all. So they were in line for like a fortune telling machine. January's mom's prediction got stuck, and the dad was there, and I guess he had noticed her from across the room and went over there. And so he was like, just stick around, maybe mine, when mine comes out, yours will come out too. And so her fortune ended up saying, you will meet a handsome stranger. And then his fortune said, your story is about to begin. And like they apparently got married 3 months
Oh,
later. I was like, that is so cute.
They
But
framed
my
their fortune.
they did, yeah. So my funny
3 months later is
story,
crazy though.
yeah, 3 months, yeah, no, for
That is
sure.
true.
That is for sure.
Yeah.
So I was having dinner with a guy I was dating at the time, and we had these little fortune cookies, and my fortune cookie said something about the love of my life is across the table or something like that. And the guy
Wow.
grabbed it, crumpled it, and threw it and panicked.
Oh my God.
I never told anybody that, y'all.
What an ass.
Yeah, complete asshole, y'all. I can laugh about it now, but I was like, what the hell?
Damn. I'm at a
God.
loss.
I was like, talk about not wanting to
She
fall in love. Shoot, man.
Commitment issues.
Oh, 100%, 100%. So
big
back
time.
to
That's gross.
January and Gus. And January takes this moment between her parents, and on her very first book, which was titled Kiss Kiss Wish Wish, she wrote a dedication that said, to my parents who are proof of fate's strong, if animatronic hand. And Gus tells her that like he thought that was the most beautiful dedication that he's ever read. So after this, they get really quiet, and then he chooses to start telling January about the New Eden cult story and like why he was there. And so he finally opens up a little bit about himself. We kind of get to see a little bit about Gus and like his past and pretty much why he's doing what he's doing. And he tells January that he loved his mom, but he had a piece of shit dad. And as a kid, he just waited for his mom to leave him, and she never did. And so Gus tells January the reason why he's really looking into these cult interviews is because he wants to figure out why somebody would stay. Like, why is somebody staying in these kind of situations, right? For whatever cause, like, why are they staying? And so after that, January goes home and she orders finally one of his first books. And so I was like, look at you growing and getting one of his books now. um, then fast forward, they were supposed to go meet somebody for another interview, and the guy never showed. But here they have a cute little moment under the table where they reach over and start holding hands. And like
He
neither,
reached over and held her hand,
yes.
right?
So their knees were
She
like
had it,
pressed
yeah.
together. Yeah. So their knees were like pressed together, and then he like, yeah, right. Like he reaches over and like they hold hands, like neither of them pull away.
So we already talked about how they were riffing off each other with the stories that they were coming up with. And I just enjoyed that part. Like I was like giggling and laughing, reading it. And it was fun. And their chemistry is so good. They just like work together, you know? And then it was interesting to read about the carnival story with her parents and how they had this cute moment when they met, and they framed their little fortunes and
Mm-hmm.
they got married and lived happily ever after, and it was like the perfect love story. Right, wrong. And then like circle back to her thinking about that golden boy boyfriend. She was doing the exact same thing that her dad did for her mom, and trying to stay upbeat, trying to be this person that she couldn't possibly be all day, every day, 24/7, even through the loss of her dad, finding out that he had a mistress her whole life,
Yeah.
all these heavy things, you know? And so, yeah, that wasn't love, but he just fit into her ideal of love. And she even mentioned that she almost did it for her mom too, because she also wanted to have the perfect love story, just like her mom did. And she
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do that for her mom.
Yeah.
And so you start to see where January has done all these things and really sacrificing herself a little bit, all in the name of just keeping it together for her mom, which sucks, you know?
Well, it sucks because her mom won't even talk to her now.
Yeah. And like her mom is keeping her head in the sand about things and
Yeah.
refuses to talk about things.
Yeah.
I loved everything about the carnival moment. I
Yeah.
thought it was very cute. Okay, so I think Emily Henry just really knew the audience for this book, right? Because it is very specific. I feel like it's anywhere from younger Gen Xer to older millennial. Like
Mhm.
that is who this was
Yeah.
intended for. Because I mean, we're talking about lines from A Walk to Remember,
Yeah.
but we have a montage with Taylor Swift signs.
Yeah.
But we have
Yeah.
these, I mean, it's just very cute moments that are very indicative of our time, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
to go with that, this carnival moment was another montage moment where the music that I hear in the background is Kiss Me by Sixpence None the Richer. And
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
them, you know, just going from one end of the carnival to the other end of the carnival. And, you know, Gus is winning her a prize, you know, like a stuffed animal, and they're riding bumper cars. And there's only 7 rides, so I don't know how all that's possible. But that's what I envision here, right? You know, they're eating funnel cakes.
Through the magic of theater.
Yes, exactly.
That's how montages work.
Absolutely, yes. And so that whole part, I was just like smiling ear to ear because I was like, oh, I can see this playing out in my head as a movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then it gets a little darker. And I kind of like that it leans into that, right? Because it presents a good balance. A rom-com can't be all calm, you know.
Right.
There has to be that balance there. And I think these darker moments, like with Gus and with Jan recognizing her trauma and then recognizing the trauma that's going on during these interviews, right? Like all of that comes together to balance out a really good story so far. And then when she starts thinking about Jacques, right? Like he's just like this, you know, kind of
Yeah.
person, you know?
Yeah.
I feel the same way.
Like the worst part.
To leave someone and yeah.
Yeah. Like the worst parts of a, you know, golden retriever type where they're just too much. Like it's all, you know, boy next door. And
Just too
that's
perfect.
all it is, right? Surface level. That's what this is. But yeah, I think the reason that she needed Jacques, you know, is that because what I said earlier, like that family took on that mentality very early on that life's too precious and life's too short. And so even the most remote feeling of love towards someone else, she immediately latched onto it.
Yeah.
And said, I'm not going to let
Yeah.
this slip by. And that's why she ended up staying with Jacques for so long.
Yeah.
But if we're going to extend that logic to her father, right? Maybe that's why he felt the way he did about Sonia, right? Like maybe that truly was a transformative time. And, you know, I'm not going to pass this opportunity up. Even like that's no justification by any means to
Right,
cheat on
yeah.
your wife.
Yeah.
Right. But
Of
maybe
course.
it's like it just skewed his vision. And that's a way that she can relate to him on some level. Still not saying it's right, not justifiable. But
Yeah.
I could see that being a link there to where she starts to humanize it a little bit more.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
Totally.
like, you know, he wanted to keep this perfect family that January pretty much like envisioned for everybody. Like, we have to be the perfect trio. We have to have perfect life moments. We have to have all these perfect things. And he probably didn't feel like that was genuine anymore with his wife,
Right.
and maybe he did fall in love with somebody else. But at that point, like, dude, break up the like break it up.
Yeah.
Like you can't live 2 separate lives. Like you just can't. So
Right on
before
there.
we get to like our final moment, I want to talk a little bit more about Gus and his backstory. For one, I really like you're starting to see now that he's being more vulnerable with January, right? Because before he refused to say anything about himself. He would always like if she would ask a question, he would answer it with a question back. He was trying to avoid being real with her. And so I was honestly kind of surprised that he's already opening up to her so much.
Yeah, I was so glad to hear that piece of backstory from him about his childhood. He had like a completely opposite experience with his household than January did. Like, yeah, obviously there were some flaws in the way that she grew up. He actually went through like serious trauma. His dad was not a good guy, and then like it made me so sad to think of like this little boy keeping a backpack packed for, you know, whenever his mom would eventually decide to leave, and she never left. Like, you know, it just like really tugs at your heart to think about that and how obviously that would affect his writing. Obviously,
Right.
and then he even mentions like that's why he interviews the people that he's interviewing right now in the cult to try to figure out and understand what would cause people to stick around in a bad situation like
Right.
that. And so he's really trying to seek understanding for something that happened to him as a child and find healing through that. So it's sad to hear, and it really opens your eyes to, where he's coming from. And I wonder what January's going to take away from that. Is it going to come into her writing? Is she going to start to look at her upbringing and her trauma that she's working through right now in a similar way? So yeah, I thought that was a really interesting piece of backstory from him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is really interesting. And I feel like it really foreshadows how each are going to come to their own realizations and resolution, right? Like they're going, I mean, this deal that they've struck, right, is obviously going to be something transformative for both of them. And so I think, how ironic that it just happens to be with the Arrivals genre,
Yeah.
and that's how it comes about. But
Yeah.
I like that juxtaposition.
I wonder, because we haven't gotten there yet. Like right now we just ended chapter 14. So I wonder if it talks more about present tense, Gus's mom. Because it doesn't really talk about their relationship yet, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll eventually get to that. He doesn't really talk about having a relationship with her either. So I'm wondering what happened. Like, obviously he got older and I'm sure he left the situation and, he kind of moved on from all that. But like, I want to know more, like what happened there. And the fact that he's still, even now as an adult, seeking answers, like,
Yeah.
he obviously hasn't healed from everything that he felt like his mom should have done. And so like you said, it's going to be transformative for them, but I kind of want to know what the relationship is now. So I'm hoping we get more answers from there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. He didn't really address like what their situation is now, like his
Right.
parents.
Right.
So I don't know.
Okay, so after the interview that they were supposed to have didn't show up and they had their cute little moment, Gus, he kind of shows January one of their little notes. He said, I'm sorry for being weird. And, she kind of just laughed it off and said, don't be silly, Gus. You've always been weird or something like that.
Yeah.
But she takes him on her next rom-com date, which I think, honestly, she picked a really great one because I think this is a really great date to go on, and it's a date at the drive-in movie. And what's funny about it is the triple feature that she chose.
Yeah.
When Harry Met Sally, Sleepless in Seattle, and You've Got Mail. And something really funny, y'all, like I'm all about the romance, but I've only watched one of those three.
Are you kidding?
No.
That's crazy.
I've only watched When
Like
Harry
that's
Met
actually
Sally.
crazy.
Okay.
Wow. You call yourself a romance girl.
That's
I
like
can't call
our
myself
next
that
outing.
anymore.
Yeah, we need to do this triple feature.
I do love a good rom-com like that.
Yeah. No, me too. I love them.
Yeah.
No, they're great movies, and there's a
Which
lot of them that I
favorites?
love.
Derail.
I don't know which one's
Right?
my favorite, actually.
My favorite is Overboard with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell.
That's a good one. I love that one.
Yeah. That's my fave.
I actually love You've Got Mail.
Oh, that's your
Yes.
favorite?
So I was excited that they were going to watch this, like one of my favorites. And what I thought was so funny is like Meg Ryan was known as like America's sweetheart. She was the rom-com queen of the 90s, And Gus was like, I hate her. And then January starts thinking like, I've always been told I look like her.
But then she says, no, not
Oh
really,
my
but
God.
I wish they would have.
Yeah.
I know, I love that whole interaction.
But
It's so
like
funny.
that's what she like imagines herself to be, is like this cute, hopeless romantic, and the Meg Ryan is the perfect representation of that,
Yeah.
It's so funny. And he's just like, I hate her.
I know, and what an odd thing, like, of all the things to hate, you hate Meg Ryan?
I know. For
Yeah, like
real.
you can't possibly hate her. Have you seen her? She's so cute.
Specifically, he mentions her face. I was like, but why? Like,
Which is crazy.
yeah, like she's beautiful. What are you talking about?
I hate her.
Yeah.
So weird.
So, anyways, January has this like whole setup in her car where she like puts the seats down. She has like blankets, pillows. She even has like a cooler of beer. And so they're like they're lounging in the back of the car, and even though she like tries to make it spacious, like it's pretty tight, and so they're they're right next to each other and they're touching and those little subtle touches, and it's like, what's gonna happen? Um, so They're looking at each other, they keep glancing at each other. This is kind of where you like, okay, is something gonna happen? What's gonna happen? And so I was really excited about this part, y'all. And so Gus looks at her and she panics, of course. So she panics and tries to say, "Oh, I have to pee," and tries to get up and hits her head. Which also I have done that too, by the way.
Oh my God,
I
embarrassing.
know.
Which is also a perfect rom-com moment.
Yeah. So she hits her head. He like immediately goes to her, tries to see if she's bleeding or anything, and then they just stare at each other. And he grabs her, pulls her in, and they start making out. Well, actually, she is debating whether she should. She says something about like he has eyes of a predator or something, which I'm like, dude, chill out. You know you want to kiss this guy,
Yeah,
you know?
but like in a sexy way.
He's a predator, but in a sexy way. Whereas where all the dark romance girlies come in. Anyways,
Enter Jen.
hey, I'm like halfway between like a dark romance and romance girly, all right?
Okay.
So she eventually leans into him, and of course, like Gus's hand goes around her waist. He like draws her in. She's straddling him, and then they finally kiss. So they have like a hot, steamy makeout session in the car, and it gets interrupted by a driving employee who was like, "Hey, this is a family establishment. Like, what are you doing?" Which I thought was hilarious. I'm like, don't
Classic.
people make out in drive-in movies? But I'm like, doesn't that happen all the time?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Then why?
like
That's
their
like
trunk is open,
what they're there for.
and I don't like it. It seemed like it was
No, I get
fairly
it. This person's just
exposed.
doing their job.
I guess.
Yeah.
I was just really annoyed with the employee. I'm like, bro, like, don't people just come to the drive-in movies to make out? Like, what are you doing?
No interrupt, rude.
Exactly.
Rude. Mind your business.
Exactly, man. I was just like, man, they were just getting into it.
Yeah.
So January laughs and she's like, oh, that was probably a bad idea. But she meant like it was a bad idea that they were kissing in a family establishment place, not that they kissed at all, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, of course, Gus like leans in for one more kiss and then he goes, yeah, it won't happen again. I'm like, oh my God. Seriously, dude.
Yeah.
That's not what she meant at all. So the next day, January notices that Gus's car is gone and that he's not sitting at his usual table at the usual time that they usually sit down for, right? And she gets a little worried. Of course, she starts getting a little paranoid because she starts thinking like he's my only friend here, and I feel like we've just ruined that. And so she starts panicking about that. But then she tries to stop thinking about that and she goes to the grocery store and then she runs into Sonia there. And, of course, what does January do best? She runs away.
Avoids.
And she like freaking leaves the cart in the middle of the store, y'all. And, like runs
Oh my
away. I was
God.
like, oh, that's terrible. So she tries to go to another store, tries to get food, but she hardly gets anything. She returns. Gus's car's still gone. By Monday morning, he's still not back, and she also doesn't want to text him. So like they finally exchange numbers, but they still haven't texted each other. So she doesn't want that to be like her first text to him, like, hey, where are you? Right? And so by Tuesday, Gus is still gone, and January starts getting mad at herself for thinking so much about Gus, and like, how could she think that he could be any different? And she starts getting mad at herself for allowing herself to kiss him and to lean into the moment. And she starts talking about like, this is what I always do. This is who I am. I'm a big hopeless romantic who falls in love too quickly, right? And so she starts leaning into her writing, and she finds a really good rhythm. And so originally she talked about her dad and she talked about meeting the love of his life at the funeral, blah, blah, blah. Well, she really turns that around into like a circus story with the characters that they kind of, I mean, not kind of, they kind of shadow her family. So she talks about, it's funny because she talks about not wanting to write about her family, but then every character is like a mirror of her family. I think one of the father has like a secret family or something, and she starts talking about the character that she built around Gus. But then the last thing that I did write on here that I thought was interesting was that she gave the character that represents her mom a gun. And so January wanted to give her something to fight with. She needed to be wound tight, ready to snap, like January has been feeling this past year. Like she wanted her own mom to be after the full extent of her dad's lives. And so she talks about wanting to write an anti-romance with this story. I just thought it was interesting that she said that about her mom needing to fight back because it's something that obviously she's not seeing in her own mom, right? And so she's pouring a
Right.
lot of those feelings into that. But what did you guys think about the drive-in movie and the kiss and everything that happened and Gus disappearing? Because this is where we leave off, y'all. We leave with Gus being gone and January trying to figure out what's going on.
Another perfect stopping point.
It
Yeah,
really is. Yep.
for real. Oh my gosh. So obviously it was like a cute moment that they had at the drive-in. And it was, again, it's another montage, like Ethan has been saying, a cute little drive-in moment. There, the tension is kind of rising while they're there because they're in close
Mm-hmm.
quarters, they're touching. And it's inevitable and it happens. She even like bumps her head right before it happens, which is a very rom-com moment.
Yes.
And then it was just perfect for them to be busted by an employee, and tell them like this is a family establishment. I can see it play out in like in a real movie.
Yeah.
So that was cute and all. And then obviously to be crushed the next day that Gus just disappeared. But I think this is his MO. Like she's already talked about it before when she knew him in college. He always had a flavor of the month. He had that 30-day shelf life. And I think he really has liked January since college. And I think the fact that it's finally happening for them might possibly scare him
Right.
because he doesn't want to screw it up. And he's not a hopeless romantic. He didn't have a great example of love in his upbringing.
Right.
So for him, like all he knows is that these things don't end well and he doesn't want to screw it up with her. So kind of saw it coming, unfortunately. And of
Yeah.
course, it's going to cause January to spiral about it. Like,
Right.
oh no, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Classic girl moment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the classic movie and dinner date is just a perfect date. I love that kind of date. And so when this came around and it was full of rom-coms and it was a triple feature, that's a little much.
Yeah.
But
That is
love
long.
I love those moments. And yeah, it is another montage moment. And we talk about slow burn a lot because it's one of Jen's favorite tropes. And I think this is a perfectly paced kind of slow burn, right? Like
Yeah.
it was around this time of the book where we the audience needed something to happen,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what happened. And so I think that's good. I don't really care for the miscommunication trope.
Oh,
I can't
yes.
stand
I hate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's what
The
this is,
worst.
because to your point, Jen, like she did say, well, that was a bad idea. And he just assumed that she meant just the kiss altogether. But I was like,
Right.
bro, like you
Yeah.
couldn't tell that she was
Exactly.
into you. Like, man, it's like she was right there with you. And she's obviously been obsessed with you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why
Right.
it wouldn't have taken much of a mental jump to say, wait, did you mean the kiss or that we got caught?
Right.
Like
Right.
let's think through it a little bit. I can't stand miscommunication.
I hate it so much.
But on the
Yeah.
flip side, how often do we do that? Like,
Yeah.
but again, I don't want to read romance for reality, okay? Geez.
Yeah.
But we're quick to do that, like I know I will second guess everything, just like we see her doing
Oh,
now
yeah.
that this has taken place.
Yes.
And she second guesses everything. Well, and then she talks herself into like, oh, I don't believe in romance after all, and this is going to be much easier to write now,
Yeah.
in spite of him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on,
Ugh.
like I can see how you got there, obviously, but I just want to
Right.
shake you a little bit,
Yeah. And then we do that, right? We get mad. We're like, I'm not doing that ever again. And then it happens like, it's like, do it again.
Right. And it happens again.
It's a vicious
We
cycle.
don't. Okay, friends, that's the end of our deep dive of Beach Read. Now we're going to move on to a segment we're calling Swoon and Tell. And now we actually have some moments and quotes that we want to share with you guys. So for me, my favorite quote is in the beginning. And this is the reason it was my favorite quote is it just made me laugh a lot. And again, it's happened and I always think it's funny because it's like the guy always falls first. But the quote that made me laugh was when they make the deal and Gus adds in, just one more thing, promise not to fall in love with me. Because clearly we're seeing that Gus is the one initiating all the cutesy moments. He's the one initiating all of these like different scenarios happen between them. You know, he's the one that held her hand, told her that he's read her books. You know, he initiated the cute little notes between the windows thing. You know, he's probably and he's the one that grabbed her for the kiss too. Like, so for him to say that and then for him to do the opposite, to me, that's just funny. And I actually love that because I do love it when the guy falls first anyways. And then my favorite moment, which I've already talked about, but it was the Taylor Swift moment. And I'm telling y'all, as soon as I read this, I went and watched the music video. And even now, as we're talking about it, I can hear the song in my head, like, you belong with me. I just love it.
Who sings that?
I don't know what it is about it. So anyways, that was my moment, my favorite quote.
Okay, so I really liked so I'll start with my favorite quote. I didn't catch what chapter this was in, but when he told her that he had lied to her and that he has actually read her books, that was my favorite quote, just because to me, I'm thinking like, I knew it. He has always liked her. He's been following her career, and like, he actually doesn't look down on her writing. That's just an assumption that she's been making this whole time, you know? And then my favorite moment was when they were going back and forth at the carnival, making up all these stories with the characters. I just thought that was such a fun moment to read.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yep. My favorite quote was a piece of dialogue that they had, and it just was really indicative of the banter that there was had throughout this whole section. And he was telling her something, that he didn't go to homecoming. And
right.
And so she starts playing like this fake violin, and he's like, "What are you doing?" She's like, I think I'm holding a violin." He's like, "No." He said, "I can safely say that you were not."
I thought that was really funny too.
I love that moment. Like, I actually laughed out loud at that moment. I was like, she's stupid.
Hey.
And then my favorite moment was where we really got insight into their writing processes, and those happened throughout this section, but a lot happened during that carnival scene, and then also in some of Jan's solo moments where she was actually thinking about the characters in her brain, you know, and how they were interacting with one another. But I loved that insight and just showing that everyone approaches creativity from a different, you know, perspective. I thought that was really cool. All right. Well, I'm going to start wrapping things up here on this end. So, this is the end of our deep dive, obviously, for chapters 8 through 14 of Beach Read by Emily Henry. Next week, we are going to discuss chapters 15 through 21. So again, like we were saying in the beginning of the episode, please engage with us. We are wanting to have those conversations with you. Interact with us on social media. We are Books Between Friends Pod on all platforms. Be on the lookout for our podcast clips and join us in discussion throughout our comments. We'd love to hear from you.
All right, guys. So next time, as January and Gus dive deeper into their writing challenge, we see past the snark and into their shared vulnerabilities. This section explores grief, trust, and the slow unraveling of two people who've been building walls around themselves for years. There are porch swings, broken barriers, and one unforgettable dance that might just change everything. We're talking character growth, emotional tension, and the moments that made us swoon or stop and feel. Join us as we unpack chapters 15 through 21 and inch closer to the heart of this story.